My daughter stole $50,000 that I had saved for half my life and flew to the Maldives. I opened the safe and saw that it was empty. Now, my daughter will face trial. Before continuing, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, where are you listening from? I found the money missing on a Tuesday morning. $50,000 in cash. Gone from the safe in my study. The combination known to exactly three people: myself, my late wife Margaret, and our daughter Jessica. Margaret had been gone for 2 years. That left one possibility. I sat in the leather chair she'd given me for our 30th anniversary and stared at the empty space where the bundled bills had been. My hands didn't shake. My breath stayed steady. I'd spent 37 years as a CPA before retiring. Numbers don't lie, and neither do empty safes. The house felt different that morning. Colder? Maybe. Or perhaps I was finally seeing it clearly. I called Jessica's cell, straight to voicemail. I called the landline at her house. 4 rings, then her husband Derek's voice, careful and rehearsed. "Hey, Paul. Jessica's not available right now. I need to speak with her. She's actually out of town. Didn't she tell you?" The pause stretched long enough for me to hear everything he wasn't saying. Out of town, where? It was kind of last minute. The Maldives. She'll be back in 10 days. I looked at the calendar on my desk, the one where I'd circled her birthday next month. The one where I'd already written deposit check for the usual $2,000. The Maldives? I repeated. Yeah, she's always wanted to go. You know how she is about beaches. I did know. I knew she'd mentioned it at Christmas dinner, looking at Derek with those expectant eyes. I knew Derek had said they couldn't afford it this year. Renovation costs? He'd explained. New kitchen. Hardwood floors. I knew a lot of things. When did she leave? Yesterday morning. Early flight. I thanked him and hung up. Then I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the file I'd been keeping since Margaret died. Not because I'd suspected anything, because I was a CPA, and CPAs document everything. Inside were 24 months of bank statements, credit card records, copies of every check I'd written to Jessica since her mother's funeral. I spread them across the desk like evidence at a trial. Mortgage payment when Derek lost his job, $14,000. Car repair after the accident, $4,200. Emergency dental work, $6,000. Christmas gifts for the grandkids, $3,800. The down payment on their renovation, $22,000. I pulled out my calculator, the old one, not the phone app. I needed to feel the buttons under my fingers. The numbers climbed. 12,000, 25,000, 41,000, $53,000 in the last year alone. And now the safe was empty, and my daughter was in the Maldives. I sat back in Margaret's chair and looked at the photo on my desk. Our wedding day, 1,981. Margaret in white, holding daisies because roses were too expensive. Me in my father's suit, altered to fit, grinning like I'd won the lottery. We'd scrimped for years, saved every spare dollar, built this life one careful decision at a time. Margaret had worked as a school secretary while I studied for my CPA exam. We'd eaten pasta 4 nights a week so I could afford the test fees. When Jessica was born, Margaret had sewn her baby clothes from old curtains, not because we were destitute, because we understood the difference between wanting something and needing it. I picked up the phone again. This time I called my attorney, Michael Bradford. We'd gone to high school together. He'd handled Margaret's will. He was precise, thorough, and he didn't ask unnecessary questions. "Michael, I need to know something. Hypothetically, I don't like hypotheticals, Paul. If someone steals from a family member and that family member wants to press charges, what's the process? The line went quiet for 3 seconds. I counted. How much are we talking about? 50,000. Jesus, Paul, that's felony theft. Is this about Jessica? I'd known Michael would figure it out. There was no one else it could be about. She took it from my safe. Flew to the Maldives yesterday. I just found out this morning. Did she have permission to access the safe? She knew the combination. Margaret gave it to her years ago for emergencies. That complicates things. Permission to access isn't the same as permission to take, but a prosecutor would have to prove she intended to permanently deprive you of the money. If she planned to pay it back, she didn't ask Michael. And based on the last year's financials, she's in no position to pay anyone back anything. I could hear him breathing through his nose, the way he did when he was thinking. You want my advice as your attorney or as your friend? Both. As your attorney. You have a case, clear documentation, substantial amount, obvious intent. As your friend, are you sure you want to do this? Once you file a police report, there's no taking it back. This will define your relationship with your daughter for the rest of your lives. I looked at the photo again. Margaret's smile, the hope in our eyes. She stole $50,000 to go on vacation, Michael. While I've been eating frozen dinners and driving a 12-year-old Camry because I promised Margaret I'd help put the grandkids through college, that relationship is already defined. When does she get back? 10 days. You should wait until she returns. File the report the day she lands. That way she can't claim she was going to tell you, or that there was some misunderstanding. The timing will make the intent clear. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat in that chair for 3 hours, doing nothing but thinking about the day Jessica was born. Margaret had been in labor for 16 hours. I'd held her hand the whole time, watching her breathe through the pain. When Jessica finally arrived, tiny and red and screaming, the nurse had placed her in my arms and said, "Congratulations, Dad. Your life just changed forever." She'd been right about Jessica's graduation from college, the one Margaret and I had attended in a rented car because ours had died the week before and we couldn't afford repairs and a new car at the same time. Jessica had hugged us both and said, "I couldn't have done this without you. I'm going to make you proud." About her wedding to Derek, the one where I'd walked her down the aisle in the same church where Margaret and I had married, the one where she'd cried during her vows and squeezed my hand and whispered, "Thanks for everything, Dad, for all of it." Funny how gratitude has an expiration date. I pulled up her social media on my computer. Instagram. The account was public, which seemed appropriate for someone who'd always needed an audience. There was a photo from yesterday evening, Jessica and Derek on a beach at sunset. She wore a white sundress. He had his arm around her waist. The caption read, "Finally, living our best life. Number blessed, number Maldives, number dreams come true. 147 likes already." I scrolled through the comments. "You deserve this. So happy for you guys. Living the dream. What's your secret?" I almost laughed. The secret was a safe combination and a father who'd worked 60-hour weeks for 4 decades and never learned to say no. I logged out and opened my email. Started a new message to Michael. "Proceed with the police report. I'll provide documentation tomorrow. Have it ready to file the day she lands." My finger hovered over the send button. Margaret's voice in my head, soft and steady, like always. "She's our daughter, Paul. Our baby. She's a thief," I said aloud to the empty room. The house didn't answer. I pressed send. Then I opened a new document on my computer and began typing. A complete financial accounting of every dollar I'd given Jessica since Margaret's funeral. Dates, amounts, purposes, bank statements attached, credit card records, copies of checks with her signature on the deposit slips. It took me 4 hours to compile everything. When I finished, the document was 37 pages long. I saved it as evidence, PDF, and emailed it to Michael. Then I made myself a sandwich I didn't eat and went to bed at 6:30 in the evening. I didn't sleep. Instead, I lay in the bed I'd shared with Margaret for 40 years and stared at the ceiling, thinking about how you can spend your whole life building something and watch it disappear in the time it takes to book a flight. The next morning, I drove to the police station. The building smelled like coffee and industrial cleaner. The officer at the front desk was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a name tag that read, Morrison. Can I help you? I need to file a theft report. He slid a clipboard across the counter. Fill this out. Someone will be with you shortly. I filled out the form in my neatest handwriting. The way Margaret had taught me, back when she was helping me study for my exams. Clear letters. No room for misinterpretation. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Detective Sarah Chen in a small room with gray walls and a table that had seen better decades. Mr. Kimball, you're reporting a theft of $50,000 from your home safe. Is that correct? Yes. And you believe your daughter took the money? I know she did. She's the only other person with the combination. When did you discover the theft? Yesterday morning. And when do you believe it occurred? Monday evening or early Tuesday. She flew to the Maldives Tuesday morning. Detective Chen wrote something in her notebook. You're certain about the timeline? I pulled out my phone and showed her the Instagram post. Then I handed her a flash drive. Everything's documented here. Financial records, bank statements. The combination log Margaret, my late wife, kept a record of who knew it and when they were given access. Screenshots of my daughter's social media showing she's currently in the Maldives. I've also included Michael Bradford's contact information. He's my attorney. She looked at the flash drive like it might contain nuclear codes. You're very prepared, Mr. Kimball. I was a CPA for 37 years. Preparation is what I do. She plugged the drive into her computer. I watched her eyes move across the screen, reading through the documentation I'd spent all night perfecting. This is extremely thorough. Will it be enough for charges? She looked at me then, really looked at me. The way people do when they're trying to figure out if you understand what you're asking for. Mr. Kimball, are you absolutely sure you want to pursue this? Once we begin the investigation, once charges are filed, this is your daughter. This will have significant consequences. She stole $50,000 from me while I've spent the last 2 years sacrificing to help her. Those consequences started the moment she opened my safe. Detective Chen nodded slowly. We'll begin the investigation immediately. Given the amount and the documentation you've provided, this will likely result in felony theft charges. She could face up to 10 years in prison, though a first offense would probably result in a lighter sentence, maybe probation and restitution. I understand. We'll need to wait until she returns to the country to make an arrest. International complications. She lands at O'Hare in 9 days. Thursday afternoon, 3:15. Detective Chen made a note. We'll have officers waiting. I drove home in silence. The radio stayed off. The windows stayed up. Just me, and the sound of my own breathing, and the hum of 12-year-old engine. When I got home, there was a voicemail from Derek. Hey, Paul, just wanted to let you know Jessica's having an amazing time. Really needed this break, you know? Work's been stressful. Anyway, she said to say hi. Talk soon. I deleted it without responding. Then, I went to my study and pulled out another file. This one labeled College Fund in Margaret's handwriting. Inside were the account statements for the money we'd set aside for our grandchildren. Jessica's two kids, Emma and Noah, currently held $47,000. Money Margaret and I had saved by taking staycations instead of cruises, by driving old cars and eating leftovers and saying no to ourselves so we could say yes to their futures. I'd made a decision during the drive home. I opened my laptop and logged into the account. Changed the beneficiary designation from Jessica Kimball, authorized trustee, to Emma and Noah Kimball, direct beneficiaries upon enrollment in accredited post-secondary institution. Then I changed all the access permissions. Jessica couldn't touch it now, couldn't borrow against it, couldn't temporarily reallocate it the way she'd clearly been planning. The money would go directly to the schools when the kids enrolled, not a dollar before. I saved the changes and logged out. Margaret would have approved. She'd always said the gift wasn't for the parents, it was for the children. My phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor, Helen. She was 73, widowed, and made the best apple pie in Illinois. Saw you leave early this morning. Everything okay? Helen watched everything. Not in a nosy way, in a neighborhood way. The kind where people still looked out for each other. I texted back, just handling some business. I'm fine. 3 dots appeared immediately. You don't look fine. You look like Margaret did that time the furnace died in February. Come over. I made soup. I almost said no. Then I remembered I hadn't eaten anything but a sandwich I didn't finish in 2 days. Give me 10 minutes. Helen's kitchen smelled like chicken and herbs, and everything warm that mine hadn't felt like in 2 years. She ladled soup into a bowl the size of a small basin and pushed it across her table. Sit, eat, talk when you're ready. I ate 3 spoonfuls before the words came out. Jessica stole $50,000 from me and flew to the Maldives. Helen's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I filed a police report this morning. They're arresting her when she lands next week. The spoon clattered into her bowl. Paul, have you thought this through? For 2 straight days. Didn't sleep, didn't eat, thought about nothing else. She's your daughter. She's also a thief. Helen stood up and poured herself coffee she didn't drink. Just held the mug like an anchor. Margaret's not here. The words came out harder than I meant them to. Margaret's not here, and Jessica knew that, and she took advantage of it. She waited until her mother was gone, and then she helped herself to everything we built. What about the grandchildren? Their college fund is locked. She can't touch it. They'll get every penny when they enroll. That money was always for them. Helen sat back down. The kitchen clock ticked above the sink. One of those old-fashioned ones with actual hands that moved and made noise. You know what's going to happen, she said finally. The whole family will fracture. Derek's parents, your side. Everyone will have to choose. I'm not asking anyone to choose. I'm asking my daughter to face consequences for her actions. That's the same thing, Paul. Maybe it was. But I'd stopped caring about the politics of it somewhere around hour 6 of staring at my ceiling. I finished the soup and thanked Helen. She walked me to the door and put her hand on my arm. If you need anything at all, I'm right here. I knew she meant it. Back home, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went into the garage and pulled the dust cover off Margaret's old sedan. The one I'd kept registered and insured even though I never drove it. Couldn't bring myself to sell it. She'd loved that car. Said it drove like butter. I opened the driver's door and sat in her seat. It still smelled faintly of her perfume. White diamonds. $10 a bottle at Walgreens. She'd worn it for 30 years. I gripped the steering wheel and let myself feel it. All of it. The anger, and the grief, and the betrayal, and the bone-deep exhaustion of being disappointed by someone you'd have died for. Then I went back inside and made myself dinner. Real dinner. Chicken breast, roasted vegetables, brown rice. Ate it at the kitchen table with a cloth napkin and a glass of water. Not because I was hungry. Because I'd decided something sitting in Margaret's car. I wasn't going to disappear into this. Wasn't going to let Jessica's choices hollow me out until I was just another bitter old man rattling around an empty house. Margaret would have hated that. So I ate my dinner and washed my dishes and went to bed at a reasonable hour. And this time, I slept. The next 9 days passed in a strange, suspended kind of routine. I woke up. I made breakfast. I read the paper. I did the crossword. I called Michael twice to confirm everything was in order. Both times, he assured me it was. Jessica posted 14 times on Instagram. Beach sunsets, tropical drinks, underwater photos of colorful fish, Derek doing a cannonball into an infinity pool. Every post tagged with number blessed, or number grateful, or number living the dream. Not one mention of where the money had come from. On day 6, she called. I almost didn't answer. Then I realized I wanted to hear her voice. Wanted to catalog the sound of it before everything changed. Dad, hi, can you hear me? The connection's kind of bad. I can hear you. Oh, good. I wanted to call sooner, but the time difference is crazy, and we've just been so busy. This place is incredible, Dad. Like, literally, paradise. We went snorkeling yesterday and saw sea turtles. Sea turtles! And the food, oh my God, the food is insane. Sounds wonderful. It really is. We needed this so bad. Things have been so stressful with the renovation and Derek's job situation and just everything, you know? Sometimes you just need to get away and reset. I can imagine. Anyway, I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. Are you eating okay? Getting out of the house? The concern in her voice sounded genuine. Maybe it was. I'm fine, Jessica. Okay. Good. I worry about you rattling around in that big house all alone. You should think about downsizing, honestly. Get a nice condo or something. Easier to maintain. I'll keep that in mind. Well, I should go. We have a sunset cruise in 20 minutes. Love you, Dad. Jessica, wait. Yeah? I almost asked. Almost said, how did you pay for this trip? Just to hear what she'd say. What lie she'd construct on the spot. But I didn't. Have a safe flight home. Thanks. See you soon. She hung up. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, listening to dead air, thinking about how easy it is to say, I love you, when you're standing in paradise that someone else paid for. Detective Chen called on day 8. Mr. Kimball, I wanted to confirm the details for tomorrow. United Flight 1847, landing at O'Hare, 3:15 p.m., Terminal 1. That's correct. We'll have 2 officers waiting at the gate. Given the circumstances and the documentation you provided, the state's attorney has approved felony theft charges. We'll take her into custody immediately upon disembarkation. Will Derek be arrested as well? Not at this time. There's no evidence he accessed your safe or knew about the theft beforehand. Though if he benefited from the stolen funds, which he clearly did, he could face charges as an accessory after the fact. That would be up to the state's attorney. I understand. Mr. Kimball, last chance. Are you certain you want to proceed? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. She exhaled slowly. Okay. We'll call you after the arrest is complete. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Not from doubt, from anticipation. I lay in bed thinking about courtrooms and lawyers and Jessica's face when the officers approached her, wondering if she'd cry, if she'd be angry, if she'd finally understand what she'd done. Thinking about Margaret and what she'd say if she were here, she probably would have forgiven Jessica. Margaret had always been the soft one, the one who believed in second chances and the good in people and the power of love to fix things. But Margaret had also been the one who'd taught me that love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. She'd said that once, years ago, when Jessica had crashed her car for the second time in a year and wanted us to buy her a new one. Margaret had said no, had told Jessica she'd need to save up and buy it herself, had held that line even when Jessica cried and pleaded and said we were being unfair. Jessica had been 17 then. She'd saved for 6 months and bought a used Honda with her own money. She'd never crashed again. Margaret had known what she was doing, had understood that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the natural consequences of their choices. I wondered if she was watching now, wondered if she approved. I fell asleep around 4 a.m. and dreamed of empty safes and tropical beaches and police cars with their lights off, waiting silently in airport parking lots. Thursday arrived cold and gray. The weather forecast called for rain by evening. I got up at 7, made coffee, scrambled eggs, toast with Margaret's homemade strawberry jam, the last jar from the batch she'd made 3 summers ago. I ate slowly, methodically, tasting nothing. At noon, I drove to Michael's office. He was waiting with a manila folder thick with paperwork. It's all here. The police report, the financial documentation, the statement from Detective Chen, your sworn affidavit. What happens next? Jessica will be arrested at the airport, taken to the county jail for processing. She'll have an initial appearance before a judge, probably tomorrow morning. Bail will be set given the amount, probably $50,000 to $100,000. If she can't post it, she stays in jail until trial. How long until trial? Could be months, could be over a year, depending on the court's backlog and whether she takes a plea deal. What kind of deal? Restitution in full, probation, community service, maybe anger management or financial counseling. The prosecutor would probably drop it to a misdemeanor if she makes full restitution and shows genuine remorse. And if she doesn't, then it goes to trial. And if she's convicted, she could do real time, 3 to 7 years, for first offense felony theft of this amount, plus restitution, plus court costs, plus a felony record that'll follow her forever. I nodded. Michael leaned back in his chair. Paul, I have to ask one more time. Are you prepared for this? For what it's going to do to your family? My family started fracturing the moment Jessica decided her vacation was more important than her integrity. Derek's going to call you. Probably Jessica's friends, maybe even Emma and Noah's other grandparents. Everyone's going to have an opinion. They can have all the opinions they want. The facts won't change. Michael slid the folder across his desk. Then it's done. Detective Chen has everything. The arrest happens in 3 hours. I took the folder and stood to leave. Paul, I turned. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. It takes courage to hold someone accountable when you love them. I didn't feel courageous. I felt tired. But I thanked him anyway and drove home to wait. The call came at 4:17 p.m. Mr. Kimball, this is Detective Chen. The arrest has been completed. Jessica Kimball is currently in custody at Cook County Jail. She'll appear before Judge Martinez tomorrow at 9 a.m. for her initial appearance. How did she react? A pause. She was surprised. Asked a lot of questions we couldn't answer. Wanted to call her husband. We allowed that from the jail. Thank you, Detective. We'll be in touch regarding the next steps. The state's attorney will likely want to meet with you before the hearing. I hung up and sat very still. It was done. My daughter was in jail because of me. My phone rang again 7 minutes later. Derek, I answered. What the hell did you do? His voice was raw, panicked, angry. I reported a theft. She's your daughter. How could you? She's sitting in a jail cell right now because of you. She's sitting in a jail cell because she stole $50,000. It was a loan. She was going to pay you back. Did she tell you it was a loan? Did you know she took it from my safe without asking? Silence. That's what I thought. You self-righteous bastard. You've ruined her life. Do you understand that? She could go to prison. She should have thought about that before she robbed me. We'll fight this. We'll get a lawyer. We'll prove. Prove what, Derek? That she didn't take the money? That she had permission? Go ahead. Try. The combination log shows she was given access for emergencies only. The safe shows $50,000 missing. Her Instagram shows her in the Maldives the day after. Good luck explaining how that's not theft. You'll never see your grandchildren again. You know that, right? Emma and Noah, they'll grow up knowing their grandfather put their mother in jail. The threat landed exactly the way he meant it to, but I'd already made peace with that possibility. Then you'll need to explain to them why their mother stole from their grandfather instead of getting a job, why she valued a vacation more than her integrity, why she thought being a parent meant she was entitled to other people's money. Go to hell, Paul. He hung up. I set the phone down and walked to the living room window. The rain had started, soft at first, then harder, drumming against the glass like tiny fists. The phone rang again, and again, and again. I stopped answering after the 6th call. Instead, I went to the kitchen and made myself dinner. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. Comfort food. The kind Margaret used to make when I'd had a bad day at work. I ate at the table with the rain coming down and my phone buzzing itself to death on the counter. After dinner, I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I went to the basement and pulled out Margaret's hope chest, the cedar one her father had built for her 16th birthday. Inside were all the things she'd saved: photos, letters, report cards, Emma's first drawing, Noah's footprint from the hospital, and at the very bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, was her wedding dress. I lifted it carefully and carried it upstairs. Laid it across our bed the way she used to do when she was deciding whether to keep it or donate it. She'd never been able to let it go. I sat on the edge of the bed and ran my fingers over the lace. I did the right thing, I told her, aloud, to the empty room. Didn't I? The house stayed silent. But somewhere in that silence, I felt something shift. Like a weight I'd been carrying had finally found a place to rest. I folded the dress carefully and put it back in the chest. Then I went upstairs to bed and slept straight through until morning. When I woke up, there were 47 missed calls and 63 text messages. I deleted them all without reading them. At 8:30 a.m., I drove to the courthouse. Michael met me in the hallway outside courtroom 7. You didn't have to. Come. Victims don't usually attend initial appearances. I needed to see it through. The state's attorney is recommending $50,000 bail. Jessica's hired a public defender, young guy, fresh out of law school. He'll probably argue for release on recognizance, but given the amount and the flight to the Maldives, the judge likely won't go for it. And if she can't post bail, she stays in jail until trial or until someone posts it for her. We entered the courtroom. It smelled like old wood and industrial carpet. The judge's bench loomed at the front like a pulpit. Jessica was brought in at 8:57 wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of her. She looked smaller than I remembered, paler. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, no earrings, no tropical glow. Her eyes found mine immediately. I watched her face crumple, watched her mouth the words, "Dad, please." I looked away. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Case number 2024CR8847. People versus Jessica Marie Kimball. Charge of felony theft, over $50,000. How does the defendant plead? Her public defender stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. The state requests bail of $50,000, given the significant amount involved and the defendant's recent international travel. Your Honor, my client has no prior record. She's a mother of 2 with deep community ties. She poses no flight risk. We request release on her own recognizance. Judge Martinez looked over her glasses at Jessica. Miss Kimball, did you or did you not take $50,000 from your father's safe without permission and use it to fund a vacation to the Maldives? Jessica's lawyer started to answer. The judge held up her hand. I'm asking your client, counselor. Jessica's voice came out small. I was going to pay him back. That wasn't my question. Did you take the money without permission? Yes. Bail is set at $75,000. Next, appearance is set for December 3rd at 10 a.m. Defendant is remanded until bail is posted. The gavel came down. Jessica turned to look at me one more time as the officers led her away. Her face was streaked with tears. I stood up and walked out. Michael caught up with me in the parking lot. Paul, wait. I can't, Michael. Not right now. She doesn't have $75,000. Derek doesn't have it either. She's going to sit in jail. Then maybe she'll have time to think about her choices. I drove home through streets that felt unfamiliar, even though I'd driven them for 40 years. Everything looked the same. Nothing felt right. Helen was waiting on my front porch with a casserole dish covered in foil. Chicken tetrazzini. You need to eat. Thank you. How are you holding up? I don't know yet. She nodded, like that was a reasonable answer. I'm here if you need me. Inside, my house was exactly as I'd left it. Quiet, clean, empty. I put Helen's casserole in the refrigerator and went to my study. The safe was still open, still empty. I closed it and spun the combination lock. Then I pulled a blanket over it and turned off the light. Some vaults should stay closed. The next 3 days blurred together. More phone calls I didn't answer. More messages I didn't read. An email from Derek's mother calling me cruel and vindictive. A Facebook message from one of Jessica's friends saying I was destroying my family over money. None of them knew about the $53,000 I'd given her in the last year alone. None of them had seen the receipts, the documentation, the pattern of financial dependence she'd never tried to break. None of them understood that this wasn't about the money. It was about the moment Margaret had put that combination in Jessica's hands and said, only for emergencies. Only if you truly need it. It was about the meaning of words like need and emergency and family. It was about the difference between helping someone and enabling them to hurt you. On Monday, Michael called. Jessica's taken a plea deal. Full restitution of $50,000 within 12 months, 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, financial counseling. It'll stay a felony on her record. Can she make restitution? They've taken out a home equity loan. It's going to strain them, but they can do it. When do I get the money back? First payment is due in 30 days. $4,200 per month for 12 months. The court will garnish Derek's wages if they miss a payment. Thank you, Michael. Paul, she wants to talk to you. Asked if you'd be willing to meet? I thought about that. About sitting across from my daughter in some neutral coffee shop or park bench. About hearing her explain or apologize or rage at me. Not yet, I said. Maybe not ever. I need to think about it. I understand. I hung up and looked around my study. At the papers still scattered. Across my desk. At the photo of Margaret on our wedding day. At the blanket-covered safe in the corner. Then, I did something I should have done 2 years ago. I started packing up Margaret's things. Not to forget her, not to erase her, but to make room for whatever came next. I folded her clothes and donated them to Goodwill. I boxed up her books and gave them to the library. I took her jewelry, the real pieces, the ones with meaning, and put them in a safety deposit box for Emma when she turned 18. It took me a week. When I was done, the house felt different. Lighter, maybe, or just less full of ghosts. Helen came over, and we went through Margaret's recipe box together. She took the ones for desserts. I kept the ones for soups and stews. You did the right thing, Helen said as we were closing the box. Not just with Jessica, with all of this. Margaret wouldn't want you living in a museum. I don't know what she'd want anymore. Yes, you do. She'd want you to live, really live, not just exist in a house full of memories. Maybe she was right. The first restitution payment arrived 33 days later. A cashier's check for $4,200 made out to me, with restitution case 2024CR8847 in the memo line. I deposited it and immediately transferred $4,200 to Emma and Noah's college fund. Every month, Jessica's check arrived. Every month, I transferred it directly to their education account. By month 6, the fund had over $70,000. By month 12, it had $94,000. Not a penny went to me. Jessica called once, 4 months after her sentencing. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't either. But I wanted you to know I'm in counseling. Real counseling, not the court-ordered financial thing. Dealing with some stuff. Understanding some patterns. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. For Emma and Noah, for myself, I miss you. I miss Mom. I miss who we used to be before I screwed everything up. Anyway, that's all. I hope you're okay. I saved the message without responding. Helen asked me about it that Sunday over coffee. Are you going to call her back? I don't know. She's still your daughter. She's still a person who stole from me. Both things can be true. I thought about that. About how humans hold contradictions. About how you can love someone and not trust them. About how family isn't obligation, it's choice. Maybe someday, I said finally. But not today. Helen patted my hand. That's fair. The last restitution payment arrived on a Tuesday in October, 13 months after Jessica had landed at O'Hare and walked into a pair of waiting handcuffs. I deposited the check and made the final transfer to the education fund. Total balance $94,312, enough to send both kids to state school with some left over. Maybe community college first to save money, then transferred to university. Smart planning, the kind Margaret would have approved of. I logged out of the account and closed my laptop. Then I did something I'd been thinking about for weeks. I called the coordinator at the community center where Jessica had been doing her court-ordered service hours. "Hi, this is Paul Kimball. My daughter Jessica has been volunteering with your meal program." "Oh, yes, Mr. Kimball. Jessica's been wonderful, very reliable. The seniors love her. I'd like to volunteer as well. Do you have any openings?" A pause. "You want to volunteer with your daughter?" "No. I want to volunteer at the community center, where she happens to also volunteer. Different days would be fine. We have spots available on Thursdays. Serving lunch from 11 to 2. I'll be there this Thursday." I started the following week. The work was simple. Serve food, clean tables, talk to people who were lonely or hungry or both. Make them feel seen. It felt good. On my fourth Thursday, I arrived to find Jessica in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. Our schedules weren't supposed to overlap. She looked up. Froze. "Dad, Jessica." We stood there for a long moment, separated by a stainless steel counter and 13 months of silence. "I didn't know you were volunteering here," she said finally. "Started a few weeks ago. Ruth told me Thursdays. I usually do Tuesdays, but I had to switch this week because of Noah's school thing." "I see." She set down the knife. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Dad, the vegetables need to be cut smaller, 1/4-inch dice. The seniors have trouble with large pieces." She looked at the cutting board, then back at me. "Right. Okay." I moved to the next station and started assembling sandwiches. Turkey on wheat, ham on white. The simple, repetitive work that lets your mind go quiet. We worked in silence for 20 minutes. Then Jessica spoke, so softly I almost didn't hear her. "Mom would have liked this, seeing us here, helping people." I paused, my hands full of sandwich bread. "Yes," I said, "she would have. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know sorry doesn't give you back what I took, but I am sorry, so incredibly sorry." I finished the sandwich I was making, wrapped it carefully, added it to the pile. "I know you are. Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about that, about what forgiveness meant, whether it required forgetting, whether it meant everything going back to how it was before. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "But I'm here. You're here. That's something." She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "That's more than I deserve." Probably. We kept working, side by side but separate. Two people who used to be family, trying to figure out if they still were. The seniors started arriving at 11:30. I served them mashed potatoes and green beans, and watched Jessica smile at them, joke with them, remember their names and ask about their grandchildren. She was good at this, at seeing people, at making them feel like they mattered. Maybe she'd always been good at it. Maybe I'd just forgotten to notice. When the lunch service ended, we cleaned up together, wiped tables, swept floors, washed serving trays in silence that felt less hostile than it had 2 hours before. As I was leaving, Jessica caught my arm. "Dad, would you want to have coffee sometime? Just to talk. No pressure. I understand if you say no." I looked at her, really looked at her, at the daughter who'd stolen from me, the mother who was trying to be better, the person who was still, somehow, connected to the best parts of my life, even after everything. "I'll think about it," I said, and I meant it. I drove home through October sunshine, thinking about Margaret and her hope chest, and all the things we save because we can't bear to let them go, about whether forgiveness was something you decided or something that happened gradually, like snow melting in spring, about whether you could rebuild trust with someone who'd shattered it, or if some breaks were permanent. I didn't have answers yet. But for the first time in 13 months, I thought maybe someday I might. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house Margaret and I had built our life in. It was just a house, walls and windows and a roof that needed replacing. But it was also the place where we'd raised Jessica, where we'd celebrated Christmases and birthdays and ordinary Tuesdays that felt like nothing special until they were gone, where Margaret had taught me that love meant boundaries, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone fall and then wait to see if they get back up on their own. She'd been right about that. Jessica had fallen, and she was getting back up, not because I'd caught her, not because I'd made it easy, because she'd had no choice but to learn to stand on her own. I got out of the car and went inside. The safe was still in my study, still locked, still covered with that blanket. I pulled the blanket off and opened it. It was empty, had been empty for 13 months. But tomorrow, when that last restitution check cleared, I'd have $50,000 back, money that could sit in the safe, or go to charity, or become something else entirely. I'd decide later. For now, I just closed the safe and spun the dial. Then I went to the kitchen and made dinner from one of Margaret's recipes, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the kind that takes hours and fills the house with the smell of something good. While it cooked, I called Michael. "Paul, how are you?" "I'm okay. Listen, I want to set up a trust for Emma and Noah's education, separate from the existing college fund. I want to put the restitution money, all $50,000, into something they can't access until they graduate from college. Then it's theirs, for grad school or a house down payment or whatever they need. That's generous. It's not generosity, it's strategy. Jessica can't be trusted with money yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. This way, she can't guilt me into loaning it to her, and the kids still benefit. Smart. I'll draw up the paperwork. And Michael, make sure the trust documents specify that Jessica has no access, no emergency withdrawals, no trustee authority, nothing. It goes straight to the kids when they turn 25. Understood. I hung up and checked the pot roast. It was coming along. Outside, the sun was setting. Long shadows across the lawn. The maple tree Margaret had planted 30 years ago blazing red and gold in the autumn light. I thought about calling Jessica, about saying yes to that coffee, but not yet. There was still too much that needed to heal. Too much distance that time hadn't closed. Maybe next month, maybe next year, or maybe never. Some relationships don't survive betrayal. Some trust, once broken, stays broken. I was okay with that possibility now, because I'd learned something in the last 13 months. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. You can hope they change while accepting they might not. You can leave the door unlocked without standing in the doorway, waiting for them to walk through. And you can forgive, maybe, someday, without forgetting what they did or who they showed you they were. The pot roast finished cooking at 7:30. I made myself a plate and sat at the kitchen table with a glass of Margaret's favorite wine, the cheap Merlot she'd loved, because it was what we'd had on our wedding night. I raised my glass to her photo on the mantel. I hope I got this right, I said aloud. I hope you'd be proud. The house stayed quiet. But somehow, in that silence, I felt something like peace. I finished my dinner and washed the dishes and went to bed at a reasonable hour. And for the first time in 2 years, I slept through the night without waking up once. The safe stayed locked. The college fund kept growing, and somewhere in the space between justice and mercy, between accountability and grace, I found a way to keep living, not the life I'd planned, not the family I'd imagined, but a life nonetheless, human, imperfect, mine. And that, I decided, was enough. If you liked this story, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to more stories, click on the window on the right. Thank you for being with us.